reproduction of this content is not allowed without the express written consent of EBH Fitness, LLC. We're back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Borderland Sports Report. One of the things that we wanted to do was to give all the student athletes here in the Borderland some pub. And so tonight we're reaching out and looking at wrestlers here in the Borderland. And with me, I have as a guest, Coach Juarez. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. What's up with the wrestling scene here in the Borderland?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me again.
Yes, sir.
I feel very honored to be here. As far as the wrestling scene, I've been around it the last 20 years. Since I was in high school, but as far as now in contemporary wrestling, El Paso's really strong with wrestling as far as Texas goes. Region 1, where we are out here, it's doing really well. A couple of years ago, I think it was 30-something percent, 34% of state placers were from our region. So
nice
with us in Lubbock and Amarillo. So we're up there.
And so you're a head coach at Horizon.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Let me make sure. I was like, man, I know this is Horizon. I kill names sometimes, but who are some of the wrestlers on your team that are up and coming and coaches should really be looking at and kind of looking their eyes out for?
Okay, so I have 4 right now that come to mind that are my hammers. They're real committed. They work out year long. We've traveled to Colorado for clinics. We've done different things, but the ones that are seniors right now that are gonna do really well. I have my state placer. State qualifier, Joshua Rodriguez.
Okay.
Joshua Rodriguez was my 215 pounder. He's going up to heavyweight. He's in football right now, and he's at that 265, 270 range. So
big boy.
He's cut down before to 215, but he's gained so much muscle mass that we're going to keep him up at heavyweight. So I think he's going to do a lot of good things.
Okay.
Extremely humble kid. So the other one I have is Jonathan Gonzalez. Jonathan Gonzalez is my 138 pounder. Comes from a wrestling family. He's well-rounded with everything that we do. Works really hard during practice, after practice, in the summers, on the weekends. He's out there looking for work. So I expect big things from him. And then I have Asaret Miranda. Asaret Miranda is my 145 pounder. And she's a senior coming off a really good junior year. Same thing. She's working really hard. We had a preseason tournament a couple weeks ago.
I saw that. I saw the post for that.
And she went in there and just she really dominated in that tournament. And then the other one I have is my 100-pounder, my 100-pounder, Sofia Verdugo. So Sofia Verdugo has a really mean outside single, and she's gonna come out and make some noise.
Nice. Now, we talked about some of your wrestlers, but I mean, wrestling here in the city is booming.
Yes, it is.
And I would say more so on the girls' side than boys, maybe.
I would say so. We do have some hammers citywide with the boys, but definitely with the girls. The girls are making a lot of noise. As you just saw, I think 915 Wrestling just posted they had a freshman just dominate at the national scene. So
yeah, and that's awesome. And so, who are some of those wrestlers here locally that when you go to matches, you're like, I got to see this kid wrestle?
There's a few. There's more than a few, but really, I take my hat off to the coaches here. They make sure that everybody is on that level playing field. So when we go out there, it's really programs and their styles, and every coach has their touch that they put on it and things that they do really well.
Yeah.
So I like that.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Sophia, and I work here at the Spot Family Entertainment Center, the newest hangout in El Paso. Bring your family and bring your friends down here to 8500 Dyer Street, Suite 80.
We've got, was Sydney Davis the only state winner from the area last year?
Last year, I believe she was. It was Sydney Davis and Erica Cobos.
Yes, Erica Cobos.
Erica Cobos also was great to watch. You know, at a few clinics and stuff, I went and talked to her, watched her wrestle. She was really good. Sydney Davis, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but Sydney Davis got her start with Horizon. Not officially,
Okay.
but we had a practice, and Coach Davis came over, and he brought Chris and Sydney, and she tried it out. He told me, Coach, she's a track star right now, but you know she wants to try this, try to get her in, and you know we had one practice with her. It was a 2-hour practice. Fell in love with it, and then lo and behold, she's a Bel Air state champion.
And we had the conversation before we started recording about a lot of people don't know she was a gymnast, and you made a statement that gymnastics and wrestling and how the two correlate. You want to expound on that a little bit?
Yes. So we also had a gymnast. So just like Sydney, I had Grecia Martinez, who was a gymnast for a few, I think she said 6-7 years as a kid, and it's just the core strength, the strength overall, flexibility.
Yeah.
All of that plays a huge part in wrestling. So I wish we had more of the gymnastics here in El Paso, but it definitely every sport helps, you know, another sport, but definitely gymnastics.
And it's crazy how I don't think the average person would correlate those two sports as being complementary and really helping. And it's like a gymnast wrestling, but you saying it, I mean, it makes total sense to me.
It takes incredible strength, upper body strength, to be able to do some of the things they do, swinging their body around, holding it, pulling themselves up. So all of those are extremely important. And the flexibility, the athleticism that you need, really just all plays into being a better wrestler.
Nice. Let's transition here. We were talking beforehand. So, your daughter, multi-sport athlete, ran into some issues, complications last year that kept her from wrestling. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So my daughter, her first sport was actually softball.
Okay.
She's a softball player, and in middle school expanded to basketball and track and whatnot. So her freshman year, she was softball, basketball, and wrestling.
Okay.
So she did those three sports, kind of stuck to those three sports, excelled. And her sophomore year, so her freshman year, getting into wrestling was that was on their back burner. Then her freshman year, we go to Colorado in the summer. We go out to an intensive camp out there. She goes out there, wrestles, really falls in love with it over that summer. And then her sophomore year, I mean, she was a different animal.
Yeah.
Coming out, she won the tournament in Rio Rancho up in New Mexico. A lot of good wrestling in New Mexico. Went up there, won the tournament, placed second at the district tournament here. And so that following week, we were preparing to go to regionals.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was the Tuesday, February 6th. And I still remember being there because, I'm head coach. I'm getting everything, making sure we keep time, and we're working on. This is what bothers me a little bit about it is that if we were doing something dangerous or high pace or something, then I'd understand. We were going 30%.
Okay.
And that's my rule for preparing for a big tournament like this. We're going to go 30% strength, 100% speed. So we're going and we're working on stand-ups. So something happens, freak accident happens. She's very competitive.
Yeah.
And so from what they told me, fighting off the mat return where they bring her back down and tried not to give up any more points off of that. So her head on the back was, like I said, been around the sport a long time. As a matter of fact, Coach Stutz, who coaches with me, he wrestled at Southern Oregon, and he's been around the sport 20 plus years, 25 plus years. And neither one of us has ever seen something like this in wrestling. But her head and neck basically were on the mat, and the rest of her body went over her head.
Oh, wow.
With the weight of her opponent also. So when I talked to her later, she said that she felt a snap, like a snap and a pop right on her spine. And she thought it was, a concussion or something because she was a little dazed. And until she realized that she couldn't move her hands or her legs. And so Coach Stutz comes over to me. I was on the other side of the mat room, and he comes over to me and he just says, Leah's hurt. So initially I thought, well, hurt, she's extremely tough. I never thought, anything on it. But I thought to myself, for him to come over to me and not take care of himself, something's going on. So I go over, I tell him take over, and I go over, and I'm telling her what's wrong. And at this point, she's starting to freak out. She's starting to freak out because she can't move. So I pick up her leg, and I say, control your leg. And I let it go, and it flops. It just falls.
Yeah.
So she tells me I can't. So at this point, Coach Stutz had already sent somebody to go get our trainer, Coach Waldecker. So he comes over, and he feels the back of her neck, like they assess. So gets her head and feels the back of her neck and her spine, and then I see a tear come out of his eye, and that's when my heart sank, and I knew something definitely is not right. If he said he felt that it was just bad. So he tells me, by the time he said call the ambulance right now, I was already dialing. Mm-hmm. And we get 911. They come over. The ambulance comes over. Our administrators are there. They come in. They get Leah, put her on the stretcher, take her to the ambulance, and then we go over to Providence. And at first, they thought trauma 1.
Yeah.
Trauma 1 because something's going on. And so there's about 20 doctors going in. They cut off, stuff to make sure that they can get to her. They bring in the X-ray machine. They connect her to everything. And the head doctor, the head surgeon, came in because it was a trauma 1, so all the doctors go in. And he tells everybody to clear out. And he tells me that, so he says, I'm pretty sure this is a spinal concussion.
Yeah.
Spinal concussion. You take a big hit to the spine, you go limp, and so it's basically temporary paralysis. So maybe a spinal concussion. I don't see a whole lot. We'll have to wait for the X-ray to come out, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And then, I start to say, oh, okay, spinal concussion. It's okay. It's a stinger. That's essentially. So the X-ray comes over, and I get another doctor that comes over and says, we're gonna have to transport her to UMC. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, we got the X-ray and it doesn't look good. So they show me the X-ray, and the X-ray appears that her C5 and C6, the C6 jumped the C5.
Oh, wow.
And the spinal cord is basically
cut off.
Yeah, it's
Kinked or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's compromised right there.
Yeah.
So he says it's not good. So we're gonna send her over to. We're not gonna do the MRI here. We're gonna send her over to UMC. And so anxiety goes back up, right?
Yeah.
But
sure.
As a father, you can't ever go to your child and say, "Hey, I'm freaking out,"
Yeah.
right? So I get to her and I'm like, "Hey, you're gonna be okay. Everything's good. We're gonna get through this." And that little competitor, she looks right at me, and she says she's worried, and I see she's worried, and she says, "Am I still gonna be able to wrestle at regionals in 3 days?"
Oh, wow.
And and I tell her, I don't think so. Not this week. And she starts crying because in her mind, she won all these tournaments. She was doing really well. In her mind, she said, I'm going to state this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to state this year. So it's her sophomore year. She's worked really hard since the year before, nonstop. Anyway, we transported to UMC. Same thing. They bring in the X-ray, and I need to give a special thank you to the surgeon, neurosurgeon, Dr. Wong.
Okay.
Dr. Wong.
Shout out to Dr.
Thank you,
Wong.
Dr. Wong. Dr. Wong was there when he heard that something was not right, and I don't know who he was. He was in a jacket. I guess he was somewhere else. He came in, and he's on the phone, and then he asked, I need a copy of that X-ray, or let's get a new X-ray. They bring in a new X-ray machine. They take the X-ray. He looks at it, and again, I have no idea who this man is.
Yeah.
Standing next to me, and I remember him saying, "Cancel everything for today. I'm going to surgery right now." And so it goes back in, and he doesn't know who I am either. He's just trying to focus on the patient.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in and he tells the people there. He said, "I need her for an MRI now. She needs to get an MRI now." And so he finds out who the parents are, comes over and talks to me and says, we're going to get her up there for an MRI. I'm pretty sure it's surgery, almost 100% positive. But we need to move fast. And he said, so as soon as the MRI is going to take about an hour. As soon as that MRI and the results are in, we're going to go to surgery. So this whole thing happens at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
We get to UMC about 9:45 in the morning. And by noon, she's on the operating table. So,
wow.
Yeah. So he says it's going to be about a 6-hour operation. It's going to be a posterior spinal fusion surgery. So they had to go in through the front and align what they could. I'm not a neurosurgeon, so forgive me if I have this completely wrong.
Yeah.
They went in, did what they had to, put a few screws in the front, turned her over, went to the back, and cut open. They took some bone graft from another area, put it there, and then put 4 more screws in the back.
Wow.
So screws in the front, screws in the back to realign. Now, he told me worst case scenario is, I've seen the pictures of them. Since then, I've done a lot of research on it, obviously, to see how to take care of it. But he said rods and, all kinds of things. So Dr. Wong basically has 4 screws in the front, 4 screws in the back with a spacer, because her spacer was crushed. It was done. So she has a spacer there, and so I didn't leave that waiting room. I was in there, and Another shout out to Coach Melendez. He came by and didn't have to, but he brought us food, and all that good stuff. Stayed there with us. So
Good to have that village.
yes, definitely. So 6 hours later, Dr. Wong comes out, and he shows me on his phone what it looked like before on the MRI, and it was worse on the MRI than it was on the X-ray. So he showed me the MRI from before, and then he showed me the after.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we've got it aligned. The surgery went well. I think he's like, we'll have to see what's going on. He wanted inpatient therapy because we didn't expect her to be able to walk.
Okay.
So we expected that she'd be in a wheelchair, bed, she'd be in a bed at worst case scenario. But either way, he said she's going to need inpatient therapy. We don't have any inpatient therapy for children here. We'll have to send you to San Antonio. So we were getting ready to go to San Antonio, do inpatient therapy, physical therapy, and just try to get whatever type of life she can have, whatever quality of life that we can do with physical therapy. So she wakes up, and the first thing she does is move her right foot. And she's moving her right foot. She can't bend her toes yet, but she's moving her foot. So I said, okay, she's got movement. Her left hand really doesn't work, but her right hand, has some movement in it. So I said, okay, well, we got something. We got a right foot. We got a right hand.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe one side would be out. Well, the first night was rough, obviously. Second night was rough. And on the third day, they came over to sit her up.
Mm-hmm.
And she still had the tubes and everything in her back and all that. They came to sit her up and to get her to the restroom. And when they stood her up, they were thinking they were just going to kind of pull her along. And she told them, let me do the walker. And, she looked like a baby giraffe, but she walked to the restroom.
Amazing.
And so the nurses and the physical therapists were like, I don't know what's going on right now because her chart says she can't walk.
Yeah.
So there's that. By the sixth day that we were in the hospital, she was walking laps around the top floor.
They always say, man, you can't measure the fight in the dog.
No. And I didn't mention this part. On day 2, she started refusing painkillers. She didn't want to take the morphine. They would come in whenever she needed it, or at least twice a day, and provide morphine. And she told me, she said, Dad, I don't want the morphine. And I said, why? And she told me, because when I have the morphine, I can't practice and I can't work on moving my legs and my hands. I can't feel when I'm moving and when I'm not. So she said, so she would rather feel the intense pain in her back and still be able to coordinate herself, because that's all she did when she was in her bed, is just move around. She'd rather do that than be pain-free with the worry that she might not walk.
Wow. Man, that's amazing. She got some fight in her.
Yes, she does.
She got some serious fight in her. And so today, she's back at school. I'm walking. I know we were talking and you were saying that she's getting ready for basketball.
Yes, so I had to slow her down a little bit, but we did outpatient therapy, obviously, because she can walk and do all that, so we didn't have to go to San Antonio. And a few shout-outs also. My trainer in high school, Jay Hill. Thank you, Jay Hill. Jay Hill was there with me, on the phone, talking about what the options are, physical therapy. He's been in the business a very long time. And so he actually called, and thank you again at Spine and Rehab. They've been amazing spine and rehab specialists with Harry Koster.
Hey, some of y'all gonna need some sponsorship for all of this.
Yes, Mr. Koster's been in the business a very long time. He works with UTEP athletes, and so for the last 8 months, Leah's been going 3 times a week.
Okay.
To see Harry Koster, and man, it's been night and day. From not being able to do anything to her left arm not working, and then we got it to 20%, 30%. Doctor said we might get 60% tops. Right now she's at 89% on her left arm.
That is amazing.
So it's just like you said about the village. It's just been everybody around. It's been, and I've gotten family members, relatives of friends, family, coaches, that have let me know that at your churches, at mass, at everything that you've had, you've given prayers, prayed at home, and I'd like to say that, if you don't believe, this is a story to believe that prayer does work.
Won't he do it?
Yes, sir. So
it?
thank you again, because they were heard and they were answered.
Amazing. Man, I didn't know any of this, so I'm hearing it the first time, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, the fight that your daughter has to have in her, and she was like, I'm not gonna be, I'm not giving up.
She refused.
Wow. And so you say you're slowing her down.
Oh yes. So we had the follow up a couple weeks ago, and the doctor said, well, the top part of your surgery, her spine is a little bit, bowed or has a curve. So he said, when you're about 50, it may come back to haunt you, and you may have some, issues or pain or something like that. He said, but for now, he said, the worst thing he could have, I'm clearing you for workouts. If you want to play softball, you can play softball. But,
Amazing.
So, being a coach, and I coach football also.
Yeah.
So being a coach, I've seen a lot of my players coming back from ACL injuries and whatnot, and they rush it a little too much because they get excited that they're clear, and you get, a flat tire and a hammy or, something.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been hitting the weight room. Matter of fact, she was in the weight room this morning with us at 6:30 in the morning. We're hitting the weight room. She's getting back to jogging and elliptical and, all that, trying to get back into shape before we explore, basketball or softball or anything like that.
Amazing. That is amazing. I mean, she just became my new hero.
She's been mine, so.
Man, that is amazing. I'm gonna have to definitely get that young lady on here and let her tell her story.
Yes.
And what she's had to do to get back. Amazing. Well, I mean, man, I don't even know where to go after that. I really don't. Coach, I really do appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, talk a little wrestling, let us know about some of the wrestlers in the city, and telling your story. More so than anything else, just telling your story is amazing. And so I thank you. I commend you on keeping your composure and being that rock for your daughter.
Thank you.
Amazing. But I mean, I thank you. If you got anything else?
Yes, the wrestling season's about to kick off.
Yeah,
we have the wrestling season's a little long. It's 3 months long. We go from actually October is when we have our weight certification and hydration at the beginning of October, where kids can start getting their weight loss plan, making sure that they do it the right way, making sure that they're doing it the healthy way, that they're only losing 2% of their body fat per week, which is great that we do that a month before the season actually starts. But anyway, we have the season coming on. Starts in November. We have a lot of great tournaments. If you've never been to a wrestling match, give it a chance. Go watch it. I promise you're going to fall in love. Everybody who I've seen in Clint ISD, we don't have a wrestling program before ours, and it's expanded to the middle school. I went and made sure that our board got some middle school wrestling, and thank you to them for approving that and getting that going. But once you see wrestling, it's it takes your breath away. It's intense. It's going on. I tell anybody who I asked, do you want to wrestle? And they say no. I say, do you like MMA? A lot of those MMA fighters were collegiate wrestlers or high school wrestlers. Yep. When you go see a wrestling match, it's great. Our tournament is going to be January 10th and 11th. That's going to be at Horizon. Then we're going to have a youth tournament that we're going to host. We're going to actually have the facility for on that Sunday. So that's going to be great. But there's great wrestling all over El Paso. I recommend go check it out. Wrestling coaches are great as far as inviting you over. We never say no to having you at a practice for us. We never say no to have you at a practice. Wrestling coaches put on clinics everywhere. The wrestling clubs that we have in El Paso, very inviting. If you want to put in your child, I recommend it. You know, wrestling's done a lot. It's one of those things where it's kind of like a fraternity. Once you're in wrestling, I can meet somebody on the street and they say I wrestled, and we're the best friends.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot about discipline. Teaches you a lot about you know, making sure that you get that feeling of achievement and overcoming something, because it's just you and the opponent, and it really shows you who you are, brings it out. And I've never ever coached somebody who was worse off mentally, spiritually, discipline wise after wrestling as they were before.
Nice. There you go, folks. Get your kids into wrestling. Give them a little toughness in them. Make them
Won't regret it.
Good deal. Well, folks, that's been another episode of the Borderland Sports Report. Continue to watch us. You can tune in on Fieldhouse Sports Entertainment Network and check out any of our podcasts. You can find us on iOS, Android, any major platform for podcasts, the audio, and then download the FSEN app and you can watch not only these shows, but other shows in video on demand. But thank you guys for tuning in. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.